The next president you worked for, of course, was Ronald Reagan, who was in his time and still seen as a revolutionary president, but also one of great positive disposition.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that combination, since we don't see them usually in tandem.
Yeah. Well, Reagan, in my judgment, and he was more conservative than I was. I'm pretty liberal on social issues, free, pro-choice, for example.
I won't.
But
I won't.
no, don't tell. Yeah. Um, but anyway, I thought Reagan turned out to be the best president, best leader as president since Jack Kennedy. There was an equanimity about him, that he didn't have to be president. He wasn't a driven man the way Nixon was, and to a degree Bill Clinton turned out to be. Um, but rather he was pretty happy with life. He didn't need the presidency in order to feel he had a good life. And I think that it relaxed him a little bit. But I think the shooting actually transformed him in the public eye. Before that, people thought maybe Reagan was, he was seen to be a nice guy, but was he tough enough to be president? And then he was shot, and he took that bullet and walked away with a smile, and that made people convinced a lot of Americans. The guy's pretty tough, and he had what I think was perhaps more respect for the office of the president than I've seen in a long time. When he was shot, he intentionally got out of the car on the side that the press couldn't see him, and then he stood up, he buttoned his coat, he walked back around the car to where they could see him, and he crossed the street there, in the emergency area, and people saw him doing that, walking over, and then when they could no longer see him, he collapsed into the arms of the surgeons. And it was important for him to send a message that the president wasn't down groveling on the floor, been shot, and the United States was still in good hands, and that was important. I think he had his eye on the big important things, and did pretty well by him. Now, he was the father of a lot of modern conservatism, but the conservatism we see from Trump is vastly different from Reagan, and I think Reagan will be among the first to condemn it. He didn't like the radical wing of the party very much. He didn't like people who came in and tried to bully him into doing things, because he wanted to do it his own way. And I think that's one of the strengths that he had. But again, coming back to there, a lot of lessons to be learned from each of these presidents.